The bell above the boutique door chimed at exactly 8:47. I know because I'd been staring at the clock, wondering if I should close early. That's when Ryan walked in, all polished shoes and perfect hair, carrying a bouquet of white lilies that made my stomach twist. I'm Leah, and looking back, I should have recognized the calculated precision in his timing, in his choice of flowers. The same kind my grandmother Eleanor kept on our mantel in memory of my parents. "These reminded me of you," he said, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I'd spent enough time studying people's expressions across the counter of our family's boutique to notice these things, even if I chose to ignore them then. "They're beautiful." I buried my nose in the flowers, inhaling their sweet scent while trying to quiet the voice in my head that whispered something wasn't right. "But you didn't have to." I wanted to." He leaned across the counter, his cologne mixing with the lily fragrance. "Besides, I have news." The shop felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were pressing in. Ryan's presence had that effect, commanding attention, demanding space. My brother Ethan had warned me about men like him, before he'd moved away for his fancy corporate job, and weekly doctor appointments he thought I didn't know about. "Good news, I hope?" I busied myself arranging the lilies in a crystal vase we used for display pieces. "The best." Ryan's fingers drummed against the counter's glass surface, creating tiny echoes in the empty shop. "Remember that investment opportunity I mentioned? Well, I've been talking to some people about your grandmother's property." My hands stilled on the flowers. "What about her property?" "Think about it, Leah. That location, the potential. With the right developers." He reached for my hand, his grip just slightly too tight. "We could turn this whole block into something amazing. Eleanor wouldn't have to worry about anything ever again." The lilies suddenly looked less beautiful, their petals too white, too perfect. Like Ryan's smile. "I haven't discussed any of this with her." "Ah, that's why I'm here." He circled around the counter, closing the distance between us. "I wanted you to be the first to know, to be part of this. You trust me, don't you?" Before I could answer, the bell chimed again. Ryan's sister Megan burst in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors. She stopped short when she saw us, her perfectly painted lips forming a small O of surprise. "Oh, I didn't realize you'd be here, Ryan." The look they exchanged lasted a fraction too long. "I just came to pick up that scarf I saw yesterday, Leah." "We're closed," I said, the words coming out sharper than intended. Megan's smile didn't waver. "Of course, silly me. I'll come back tomorrow." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, Ryan, don't forget about dinner with Father tonight. He wants to discuss the development plans." My chest tightened. "Development plans?" "Just preliminary discussions," Ryan said quickly, shooting his sister a look that could have frozen hell. "Nothing concrete." "Right," Megan added, her laugh like breaking glass. "Preliminary." After she left, Ryan tried to salvage the moment, but something had shifted. The lilies on the counter seemed to mock me now, their sweet scent cloying and false. "I should close up," I said, stepping away from him. "Grandmother will be waiting." "Think about what I said, Leah." He caught my wrist, gentle but insistent. "This could change everything for your family." I watched him leave, the bell's cheerful chime a stark contrast to the dread settling in my stomach. Through the shop window, I saw him join Megan across the street. They didn't notice me watching as they huddled close, heads bent in conversation, their gestures animated and urgent. The lilies sat accusingly on the counter. I grabbed them and threw them in the trash, petals scattering like secrets across the floor. Something was very wrong, and I had a feeling I'd just glimpsed the edge of it, a shadow of deceit hiding behind white flowers and perfect smiles. The video call window flickered to life, showing Ethan's tired face against the backdrop of his sterile corporate office. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, making him look older than 28. "You look terrible," I said, adjusting my laptop screen. "Nice to see you too, little sister." He coughed, a dry, rattling sound that made my chest tighten. "How's the boutique?" I hesitated, Ryan's words about development plans echoing in my head. "It's fine. Actually, I needed to ask you something. Huh. Hold that thought. He pressed his phone to his ear, mouthing, sorry, as he turned away. When he returned his attention to me, his expression had shifted into what I called his big brother mask. Listen, about grandmother's birthday next month. You're not coming. The words came out flat, a statement rather than a question. The doctors want to run more tests. He rubbed his temple, a gesture so familiar it hurt. And there's this merger. There's always something, Ethan. I started organizing receipts, needing to do something with my hands. She misses you. We both do. I'm doing this for us, Leah. The medical bills. The bills we're not supposed to know about? The receipt in my hand crumpled. When were you going to tell us about the specialists? The silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken worries. Finally, Ethan sighed. How did you find out? Jake works at the hospital billing department. He saw your name. Jake needs to mind his own business. We're your family. This is our business. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ryan. I ignored it. We could help if you'd let us. The boutique is doing well, and… No. Ethan's voice turned sharp. The boutique stays exactly as it is. Promise me you won't do anything rash. The way he said it made me pause. What do you mean? Just be careful with any business decisions, especially involving… His words were cut off by another coughing fit, worse than before. Ethan? I have to go. He was already reaching for the disconnect button. Love you, sis. Give grandmother my best. The screen went dark, leaving me with my reflection and too many questions. My phone buzzed again. Ryan's message glowed on the screen. Need to discuss the proposal. Dinner tonight? I was typing a response when the boutique's door opened. Eleanor walked in, her silver hair neat despite the wind outside, carrying a basket of fresh-baked scones. You missed breakfast, she said, setting the basket down. Her eyes caught on the trash can where yesterday's lilies lay wilting. Those were lovely flowers. Why did you throw them away? They were dying. The lie felt bitter on my tongue. Things don't die that quickly, dear. She touched my cheek, her hand cool and familiar. What's troubling you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Eleanor glanced at the screen. Ah, Ryan, such a charming young man, though sometimes… She trailed off, arranging scones on a display plate. Sometimes what? He reminds me of someone I knew long ago. Someone who also had very grand ideas about our property. She straightened a price tag with deliberate care. Your father trusted him too. My heart skipped. What happened? That's a story for another time. She patted my hand. Just remember, darling, in business, as in life, if something seems too good to be true… The bell chimed, and Megan walked in, all designer clothes and practiced smile. Eleanor, I was hoping to catch you. Father would love to discuss some investment opportunities. I'm afraid I'm quite busy today. Eleanor cut her off smoothly. And every day after, for that matter. She turned to me, her voice carrying a weight I didn't quite understand. I'll see you at home, dear. Don't forget to check the old ledgers in the back room. Sometimes the past has a way of illuminating the present. As she left, Megan's smile turned brittle. Your grandmother's quite set in her ways, isn't she? She knows what she wants. I met her gaze steadily. And what she doesn't want. Everyone wants something, Leah. Megan browsed through a rack of scarves, her movements too casual. The question is, what do you want? The answer felt like ash in my mouth as I watched her leave, knowing tonight's dinner with Ryan would be about much more than just a business proposal. Eleanor's words echoed in my mind as I headed to the back room, determined to find what secrets those old ledgers might hold. The old ledger's pages crackled beneath my fingers as I sat cross-legged in the boutique's storage room. Dust motes danced in the beam of my phone's flashlight, and the musty smell of aged paper filled my lungs. I'd been here for hours, searching through decades of my family's financial history. Then I found it, a series of transactions from 23 years ago, right before my father's death. Large sums moving in and out, consulting fees paid to a familiar name. Harrison Wells, Ryan's father. My phone buzzed. Ryan's text read, "Where are you? Everyone's waiting at the restaurant." I ignored it, my hands trembling as I photographed the ledger pages. The dates aligned perfectly with what Eleanor had hinted at. Another buzz. "Sweetheart, this is important. Father has the contracts ready." The storage room door creaked open. I slammed the ledger shut, but it was just Jake, holding 2 coffee cups. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing me one. His eyes caught the ledger. "Find anything interesting?" Ryan's father worked with mine. I showed him the photos. Right before everything fell apart. Jake settled beside me, his shoulder warm against mine. "The timing's suspicious. Everything about this is suspicious." I pulled up another text from Ryan. "They're pushing hard for this development deal. Too hard. Maybe you should hear them out." Jake's voice was careful. "At the restaurant, get them talking." "And record everything?" I finished his thought, already reaching for my coat. "I didn't say that." But he helped me up, squeezing my hand. "Just be careful, Leah. People who hide things tend to get dangerous when they're exposed." The restaurant was exactly the kind of place Ryan loved. All crystal and soft lighting, where the menu didn't list prices. He stood when I approached, but his smile had an edge. "You're late," Megan said, not bothering to hide her annoyance. "Family emergency." I slid into my seat, phone recording in my pocket. "You were saying something about contracts?" Ryan's father leaned forward, his silver hair catching the light. "We've drawn up a very generous offer for the property. The boutique, the apartment building, all of it. Your grandmother could retire comfortably." "And what about the tenants?" My voice stayed steady. "Some of them have lived there for decades." "Progress requires sacrifice," Harrison said, sliding a folder toward me. "But we take care of our own. Just ask Ryan." Ryan's hand found mine under the table, but his grip felt like a warning. "It's a good deal, Leah. Trust me." "Like my father trusted you, Mr. Wells?" The silence that followed was absolute. Harrison's face hardened. "I'm sorry?" 1999. I pulled out my phone, showing the ledger photos. "You were his business consultant, right before he died, leaving his family with nothing but debt." Megan's wine glass clattered against her plate. Ryan's grip tightened painfully. "Ancient history," Harrison waved dismissively. "Unfortunate circumstances." "Circumstances you created?" The words burned coming out. "The same way you're trying to create them now?" "Careful, Miss Matthews." Harrison's voice dropped low. "You're making accusations you can't support." "Not yet." I stood, shaking off Ryan's hand. "But I will. Stay away from my family's property." "Leah, wait!" Ryan started after me, catching up in the parking lot. "You don't understand." I understand perfectly." I turned to face him. "Was any of it real? Us?" His hesitation was answer enough. "Tell your father to back off," I said, my voice shaking, "or I'll find out exactly what happened 23 years ago." "You're making a mistake." His charm vanished, replaced by something colder. "Some doors shouldn't be opened." Too late. I got into my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel. "You opened them when you came after my family." Through the rearview mirror, I watched Ryan pull out his phone, speaking urgently. My own phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "Got the recording? You need to see what I found about your father's death." The streetlights blurred as I drove home, my mind racing. Whatever game Ryan and his family were playing, they'd chosen the wrong opponent. They thought I was just the naive girl from the boutique, easy to manipulate, easy to control. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake's apartment smelled like coffee and printer ink. Papers covered his kitchen table, medical records, old newspaper clippings, and financial documents that made my head spin. But one photograph caught my eye. My father, standing next to Harrison Wells, both younger and smiling. "Your father's death wasn't an accident," Jake said, sliding a medical report across the table. The toxicology report showed elevated levels of... A knock at the door cut him off. We froze, exchanging glances. Jake moved silently to the peephole, then relaxed. "It's Ethan." My brother stumbled in, looking worse than during our video call. "You need to stop," he said, gripping the back of a chair for support. "Whatever you're doing with the Wells family, stop." "You knew." The realization hit like a physical blow. About father's death. About Harrison. It's complicated. Ethan wouldn't meet my eyes. Ryan came to see me last week, made some compelling arguments about letting the past stay buried. Jake gathered the papers, his movements deliberate. "I'll give you 2 a minute." "They're threatening you, aren't they?" I touched Ethan's arm. He flinched. "What did they say?" "Nothing direct. Just concerns about my medical coverage, about certain experimental treatments becoming unavailable." He finally looked at me, his eyes haunted. "I can't fight them, Leah, and neither should you." My phone buzzed. Ryan again. I silenced it. "They killed our father." "You can't prove that." "Watch me." I grabbed the toxicology report. With this, Ethan snatched it away. "And what happens then? To grandmother? To the boutique? To everyone who depends on that building for their home?" He coughed, hard enough to shake his whole body. "Ryan's father has connections everywhere. One word from him. So we just let them win?" The words tasted like ash. "Let them take everything?" "Sometimes survival means knowing when to walk away." Jake returned, carrying fresh coffee. "Or knowing when to fight smarter." He set 3 cups down. "The Wells family has enemies. People they've burned before. People who might help." "No." Ethan's voice cracked. "It's too dangerous." My phone lit up with a text from Megan. "Grandmother's at the boutique. Thought you should know." Cold fear gripped my chest. Eleanor never went to the shop this late. "I have to go." I grabbed my coat. "Jake, I'll make copies of everything." He squeezed my shoulder. "Be careful." "Leah, please." Ethan caught my arm. "Don't make me watch another family member die fighting these people." I hugged him, feeling how thin he'd become. "Then help me fight them the right way." The boutique's lights were on when I arrived. Through the window, I saw Eleanor sitting with Megan, both holding teacups. My grandmother's face was ash white. The bell chimed as I entered. Megan's smile was razor sharp. "There you are. I was just showing Eleanor some interesting documents about your father's final days." "Get out!" My voice didn't shake. "But we're having such a lovely chat." Megan stood, smoothing her designer dress. "About choices, about consequences." She placed a business card on the table. "Father's lawyer, in case you reconsider our offer." After she left, Eleanor's hands trembled as she lifted her cup. "She showed me photos of your father's car before the accident." "It wasn't an accident." "I know." Eleanor's eyes met mine, steel beneath the tears. "I've always known. But knowing and proving are different things." She picked up the business card, then slowly tore it in half. "Your father tried to expose Harrison's schemes. It cost him everything." "Including his life." "Yes." She gathered the torn pieces. "But he didn't have what you have." "What's that?" "Time. Allies." She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "And a grandmother who spent 23 years preparing for this moment." My phone buzzed one last time. "Ryan. Last chance. Don't make us do this the hard way." I looked at Eleanor, saw the same resolve I felt burning in my chest. "The hard way it is, then." "Good." She reached into her purse, pulled out a thick envelope. "Then it's time I showed you what your father left behind. His real legacy." She patted my hand. "And, darling, let's make them regret ever touching our family." The envelope Eleanor gave me contained a USB drive and a key. The drive held hundreds of encrypted files, which Jake was still working to unlock. The key led me to a storage unit across town, where I now stood, staring at boxes of documents my father had hidden before his death. My phone lit up with Ryan's name. Instead of ignoring it, I answered. "Missing you at the charity gala," he said, his voice honey smooth. "Father's announcing the development project tonight." "Announcing what exactly?" I sorted through papers while keeping my voice casual. Come see for yourself. Wear that blue dress I bought you. Behind his words, I heard Megan's laugh, crystal glasses clinking. A perfect gathering of vultures. I'll be there in an hour. Jake's text came seconds after I hung up. Files decrypted. You need to see this now. I grabbed another box and locked the unit. 20 minutes later, I burst into Jake's apartment, still dusty from the storage unit. Look at this. He pointed to his laptop screen. Your father wasn't just tracking Harrison's illegal dealings. He was gathering evidence about contaminated land developments, properties that made people sick. My hands shook as I recognized an address. That's where Ethan lives now. The whole complex, built on toxic soil, covered up by falsified environmental reports. Jake pulled up more documents. Harrison's company knew. They still built there. The pieces clicked together. Ethan's mysterious illness. The pressure to keep quiet. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor sending a photo of an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, Local developer cleared in environmental scandal. Key witness dies in car accident. The date, 3 days after my father's death. I need that blue dress, I said. Jake looked up sharply. You're not seriously going to... They want to play games? I checked my makeup in my phone's reflection. Let's play. An hour later, I walked into the gala wearing Ryan's dress, a recording device hidden in my clutch, and rage burning beneath my smile. Ryan met me at the door, his hand possessive on my lower back. You look perfect. He kissed my cheek. Father's about to begin his speech. Megan appeared, champagne in hand. Careful with that dress, dear. Wouldn't want anything to stain it. I accepted a glass from a passing waiter. How thoughtful of you to worry. Harrison took the podium, all confidence and practiced charm. Tonight marks a new chapter in our city's development. My phone vibrated. Jake. Documents uploaded. Ready when you are. I moved closer to the stage, positioning myself near the front. Harrison's eyes flickered to me, then away. Our newest project will transform the old Matthews property into a state-of-the-art residential complex. Like the complex on Riverside Drive? My voice cut through the polite applause. The one built on contaminated land? The room went silent. Ryan's hand gripped my arm, but I shook him off. Or perhaps we should discuss the environmental reports you falsified. I held up my phone. The same ones my father discovered before his convenient accident? Security, Harrison called, but I was already moving through the crowd. I've sent copies to every news outlet in the state. My voice carried across the suddenly silent room. Along with proof of what you did to my father. Megan stepped forward, her face twisted. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I do. I turned to the gathered crowd. And I think your investors might be interested in knowing exactly what kind of man they're trusting with their money. Leah, Ryan's voice held a warning. Think about Ethan. I am thinking about Ethan. I faced him, letting him see the truth in my eyes. About how your father's development made him sick, made everyone there sick. Phones started buzzing throughout the room as the story hit social media. Harrison's face had gone pale, his hands gripping the podium. You're making a mistake, he said into the microphone, but his voice shook. No, I replied, moving toward the exit. I'm finishing what my father started. As I walked out, I heard the murmurs growing louder, saw investors pulling out phones, watched Harrison's carefully constructed world begin to crumble. But this was just the beginning. My phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. Your father would be proud. Now, shall we show them what else we have? I smiled, thinking of the boxes still waiting in that storage unit. The night was young, and I had 23 years of secrets left to reveal. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me, its fluorescent lights harsh against my tired eyes. Ethan's room number seemed to mock me. 223, the same as the date our father died. I stopped outside his door, my hand trembling on the handle. He's asking for you. Jake's voice was gentle behind me. The doctors say. I know what they say. The words came out sharper than intended. Inside, Machines beeped steadily. Ethan lay pale against white sheets, tubes snaking from his arms. His eyes flickered open as I approached. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "Shut up!" I took his hand, shocked by how cold it felt. "The specialist from Mayo Clinic is flying in tomorrow." "Courtesy of Harrison Wells." Ryan's voice made me stiffen. He stood in the doorway, looking immaculate despite the late hour. "A peace offering. More like insurance." I didn't turn around. "Making sure we don't release the rest of the files." "You've done enough damage." Megan appeared beside her brother. "The company's stock is in freefall. Father's reputation." "Your father's reputation?" I finally faced them. "What about all the people he poisoned? What about—" "Leah!" Ethan's grip tightened weakly on my hand. "Don't!" Ryan stepped closer, his voice dropping. "The specialist can be here in 3 hours, or not at all. Your choice." The machines seemed louder suddenly, each beep a reminder of what was at stake. My phone buzzed. Eleanor sending another document. More evidence of Harrison's crimes. But what good was justice if Ethan died? Tick-tock! Megan's heels clicked against the linoleum as she circled the bed. "Oh, and there's one other thing." She pulled out her phone, showing me security footage of Jake entering the storage unit. "It would be a shame if all those carefully preserved documents went up in flames." "You wouldn't. Try me." Her smile was razor sharp. "You have 1 hour to call off the press, retract your statements, make this go away, or Ethan loses his chance and your precious evidence disappears forever." "Don't." Ethan tried to sit up, setting off a cascade of alarms. Nurses rushed in, pushing us aside. "1 hour," Ryan repeated, following his sister out. "Choose wisely." Jake touched my shoulder. "We could release everything now, before they—" "And let Ethan die?" I watched the nurses stabilize my brother, saw his oxygen levels slowly rise. "I can't." "Your father died for this." Jake's voice was urgent. "Eleanor spent decades gathering evidence. If you back down now—" "Then I back down." The words tasted like defeat. "Family comes first." My phone lit up with messages from reporters, from Eleanor, from the environmental activists who'd rallied to our cause, all waiting for the next revelation, the final proof that would bring Harrison Wells to justice. I started typing a retraction. "Wait!" Ethan's voice was barely audible. He gestured me closer. "Storage unit, key." "Save your strength." "No." His fingers fumbled with something around his neck, a thin chain with a familiar-looking key. "Dad gave me duplicate before—" Understanding dawned. "A backup?" He nodded weakly. "Everything copied, hidden." The door burst open. Harrison Wells himself strode in, flanked by Ryan and Megan. "Time's up. Your decision?" I held Ethan's hand tighter, feeling the key press between our palms. "You win. I'll retract everything." "Smart girl." Harrison nodded to someone in the hallway. "The specialist is on his way." "Just like that?" Jake stepped forward. "You're giving up?" I met his eyes, trying to convey what I couldn't say. "Sometimes you have to lose to win." Later, watching the specialist examine Ethan, I thought about the second key burning in my pocket. About Eleanor's text. "Your father always had a backup plan. Trust his instincts." Ryan touched my arm. "You did the right thing." I leaned into him, hiding my expression. "I know." But as I watched Harrison Wells shake hands with the specialist, saw Megan's triumphant smile, I remembered something else Eleanor had told me. The best revenge isn't served hot or cold. It's served when they think they've already won. My phone buzzed one last time. "Jake. Second storage unit located. You won't believe what's inside." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of both keys. The one they knew about, and the one they didn't. The game wasn't over. It was just moving to the next level. The second storage unit was smaller than the first, tucked away in an industrial park on the city's edge. Jake's flashlight beam caught dust motes as we entered, illuminating stacks of metal filing cabinets. "These aren't Dad's," I said, running my fingers over a label. They're from Harrison's old office. Huh, look at this. Jake pulled out a folder. Medical reports. Dozens of them. All from different developments. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Megan's here. She's asking questions about Dad's old files. Before I could respond, the unit's door slammed shut. Ryan stood there, silhouetted against the emergency lights. I knew you'd try something like this. He stepped forward, Megan emerging from the shadows behind him. Always so predictable, Leah. Like father, like daughter, Megan added. Both too stubborn to let things go. I moved in front of the filing cabinet. Is that what happened? My father wouldn't let things go? He was going to ruin everything. Megan's voice cracked. Just like you're trying to do now. Me? I laughed, the sound harsh in the confined space. You're the ones who… Who what? Ryan cut in. Provided jobs, built homes, created opportunities, created graves. I pulled out a medical report. Like Sarah Wells, age 6, died of rare cancer after living in one of your father's developments. Your sister, wasn't she, Megan? The color drained from Megan's face. How did you… That's why you hate us so much. Dad discovered the truth about Sarah's death. He was going to expose it all. Shut up! Megan lunged forward, but Ryan caught her arm. It's over, he said. We're taking those files. No, Jake stepped between us. You're not. Ryan's laugh was cold. And who's going to stop us? The same way you stopped us from getting to Ethan. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor. It's done. Actually, I smiled, you just did. The unit's lights suddenly blazed on. Harrison Wells stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers. Father? Megan's voice shook. What are you… Recording's clear, sir, one officer said, indicating the hidden cameras in the corners. Full confession about the previous death and cover-up. Harrison's face was ash gray. You set this up. No, I corrected. You did. 23 years ago, when you decided my father's life was worth less than your secrets. You don't understand, he started, but I cut him off. Sarah's medical records. The real ones, not the ones you buried. Dad kept copies. I turned to Megan. He was trying to help you, to expose the truth about your sister's death, and your father killed him for it. Megan stared at Harrison. You said it was an accident. The contamination, Sarah's cancer, all of it. Everything I did for this family. Harrison's charm cracked, revealing something desperate beneath. To protect us. To build something lasting. Built on bodies. Ryan's voice was hollow. How many others? Ask your father, I said. The files are all here. Every development, every cover-up, every death he caused. Including my father's. The officers moved forward with handcuffs. Harrison didn't resist. The specialist, Ryan said suddenly. For Ethan. Was that real? I met his eyes. Ask yourself if your father ever does anything without an agenda. My phone lit up one last time. Ethan. Just saw the news. Harrison Wells arrested. Is it true? As the officers led Harrison away, Megan crumpled against the wall. Sarah, all this time. I'm sorry about your sister, I said, meaning it. But this had to end. What happens now? Ryan asked, not meeting my gaze. Now? I gathered the files we'd need for the prosecution. Now the truth comes out, all of it. Jake touched my arm. You okay? I watched the Wells family fracture before my eyes, saw the weight of decades of lies finally break them. The revenge I'd wanted felt hollow somehow, tainted by the cost of so many lives. I don't know, I answered honestly, but it's finished. Outside, Eleanor waited in her car. She hugged me without words, understanding in her eyes. My phone showed dozens of missed calls from reporters, but only one message mattered, from Ethan's doctor, confirming his transfer to a specialized treatment center. The truth hadn't brought our father back, but maybe, just maybe, it would save my brother and prevent any more families from being destroyed by the Wells legacy of lies. The boutique's bell chimed as I unlocked the door, morning light streaming through freshly cleaned windows. A stack of newspapers sat on the counter, Harrison Wells' convictions splashed across the front pages. I tucked them away in a drawer, under the old ledger that had started everything. My phone buzzed with Megan's name. I almost declined before remembering Ethan's words from the hospital. Healing goes both ways. The treatment center called, she said without preamble. They're accepting more patients from the affected developments. I thought, maybe we could help coordinate. The irony wasn't lost on me. Harrison's frozen assets now funding treatment for his victims. I'll have Eleanor contact the families. Leah, her voice caught. I found Sarah's diary. She mentioned your father. He was trying to help her. The silence stretched between us, heavy with decades of misplaced blame. I know, I said finally. After hanging up, I walked through the boutique, straightening displays Eleanor had already perfected. The shop felt different now, less a reminder of loss, more a testament to survival. The door chimed again. Ryan stood there, looking uncertain in a way his expensive suit couldn't hide. The board voted, he said. We're converting the developments into treatment facilities, starting with Riverside Drive. I continued arranging scarves. Good. I also brought these. He set down a box of files. Everything Father kept about your dad's last days. Thought you should have them. Keep them. I finally looked at him. Some graves should stay buried. He nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. As he turned to leave, he paused. For what it's worth, I did love you. Just not enough to do the right thing. I know. That's what makes it worse. After he left, Jake appeared from the back room, where he'd been pretending not to listen. You okay? Getting there. I picked up my father's old ledger, running my fingers over its worn cover. Help me with something. We spent the morning converting the storage room into a community resource center, a place for families affected by the Wells developments to find help, share stories, heal. Eleanor's idea, naturally. Ethan called during lunch, his voice stronger than it had been in months. The new treatment's working. Doctor says I might be able to come home soon. The boutique misses you, I said, though we both knew I meant more. About that? He hesitated. I've been thinking about Dad's old design sketches, the ones in the ledger. Maybe it's time we expanded the shop, like he always wanted. My throat tightened. You hate retail. But I love my sister. The smile in his voice was real. Besides, someone needs to keep you from turning the whole place into a revenge headquarters. Too late. I looked at the resource center taking shape. Though maybe revenge isn't quite the right word anymore. That evening, as I locked up, Eleanor appeared with her usual perfect timing and 2 cups of tea. I saw Ryan leaving earlier, she said, settling into her favorite chair. And Megan called about the treatment center. Are you going to tell me this is what Dad would have wanted? No. She sipped her tea. I'm going to tell you this is what you chose. Justice over vengeance, healing over hatred. Those were your choices, not his. I touched the ledger one last time before sliding it onto a shelf in the resource center. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing, exposing everything. So many lives changed. Lives were already changing, dear. We just brought the truth into the light. She stood, straightening a frame on the wall. My father's original boutique sketch, now hanging beside photos of the families we were helping. Though I suspect this isn't quite the end of the story. What do you mean? She smiled. That knowing look that had guided us through 23 years of secrets. Harrison had partners, dear. Other developments. Other families. She patted my hand. But that's tomorrow's challenge. Tonight, we celebrate this victory. I looked around the boutique. At the resource center filled with hope. At Eleanor's quiet strength. At the empty space waiting for Ethan's return. The shop that had started as a reminder of loss had become something else entirely. A testament to truth, to justice, to the complicated path between vengeance and redemption. The bell chimed one last time. Jake stood in the doorway, holding case files from other suspicious developments. Ready for what's next? I smiled, feeling the weight of the past finally lifting. Always,